Okay then guys, we've made a few loaves, so before we get our hands back into the dough, let's talk about the most important ingredient in bread, the flour. In this episode of Bread Basics, we're looking at what flour actually is, how it's made, and what types are best for baking, especially bread. So let's kick off with a little bit of history then. Don't worry, it won't be like your old school days. We humans have been grinding grains for thousands of years, and it was the ancient Egyptians who were the first real innovators. They pounded grains like emmer and barley into a coarse flour, kneaded it with water, and baked it over open fires. They also discovered that wild yeasts could make the dough rise, a huge breakthrough. The Greeks later built the first flour mills, and the Romans improved them with rotary mills powered by animals and water. But the flour was still dark and gritty. Everything changed in the 18th and 19th centuries with the invention of roller mills. These machines could separate the bran, germ and endosperm cleanly, producing the fine white flour we recognise today. So what is flour exactly? It's simply grains ground into a powder. For bread, we're mostly talking about cereal grains like wheat, rye, barley and maize. Maize especially in South America. You may wonder why wheat became so dominant. Well, it's from its adaptability to the various climates, its high yield, and its suitability for storage and transport, plus its unique gluten proteins that make the versatile foods like bread. The wheat grain has three parts. The bran, that's the tough outer skin. The germ, that's the part that would grow into a new plant. And the endosperm, the starchy centre. Wholemeal flour uses all three parts. Brown flour uses about 85% of the grain, with some of the germ and bran removed. White flour uses only the endosperm. Modern milling is surprisingly technical. The grains are cleaned, blended and passed through rollers that crack the grains open. The bran and germ are sifted away. The endosperm is ground finer and finer until it becomes flour. Millers then pack all the parts back together again to create white, brown or wholemeal flour. So from that process we get all the types of flours on the shelves in our shops. And there are quite a few. We've got plain flours, great for pastries, biscuits and sauces. And yes, you can make bread with it. We'll be doing that in a future video. We got self-raising flour, which is basically plain flour with baking powder and a little bit of salt added. Perfect for cakes and scones. And if you haven't got any self-raising flour, you can make your own. 100 grams of plain flour, 5 grams of baking powder, and a little bit of salt if you feel like it. Strong white bread flour, high in protein, so it's perfect for bread. We'll discuss the protein levels in a minute. And then we got strong wholemeal flour, which uses the whole grain. More flavour, more fibre, but it does produce a denser loaf. And then we have the brown flour, a bit of a halfway house between white and wholemeal, and as the bag says there, lighter than wholemeal, more fibre than white. And of course this comes in bread flours as well. Wheat germ flours, they boost nutrition, but not usually used on their own for bread making. And we got malted flours. These flours are made from grains that have been sprouted and then dried and milled. And of course there are numerous types of malted flour. Some boost the yeast fermentation and some add colour and a warming flavour. Rye flour, great for dense, flavourful breads like pumpernickel and used extensively in sourdoughs as well. And that brings us on to the heritage grains, the ancient grains, einkorn, emmer, spelt, buckwheat. Lovely flavours, and they're often blended with strong flour. They do get a bit pricey if you use them on their own, and you need to learn how to use these because the rise is totally different. And then of course we have all the various blends. What a minefield. I tell you what though, that 8 grain one there on the left, that is one of my favourite flours. Makes a fantastic loaf. In the UK, we talk about our flour by strength or protein level, but in Europe you'll see things like 0 or 00 or T55, T65 on the packets, and these are found on the UK supermarket shelves as well. The Italian flours, Tipo 00 or more simply 00, very, very finely milled, great for pasta, also used for pizza though. And the Tipo 0, slightly coarser, More used for pizza, and it is great for focaccia. The French tend to grade their flours by the ash content. T55, 0.55% ash. A classic French flour for baguettes and pastries. T65, more ash in it, a stronger French flour, great for artisan loaves and sourdough. And then there's the Manitoba flour, a very strong high protein flour, used for long fermentation and enriched doughs. You can recognise this one by the maple leaf on the packet. And you'd also see some flours that are made by stone grinding. These stone ground flours tend to have a richer flavour and texture, and they're widely used by the artisan bakers. And finally, regenerative flour. You see this in quite a few UK supermarkets now, and this comes from wheat that has been grown using farming methods that improve the soil health, biodiversity and water cycles, sort of taking organic to the next level. Protein percentage is one of the most important things to look at on a flour packet. More protein means more gluten means more structure and more chew. When flour meets water, gluten forms a stretchy network that traps the gas from the yeast, and that's what makes the bread rise. So specialist cake flours have a very low protein content, between 2 and 7%. Pastry flours a bit higher, 7.5 to 9.5. Plain flours about 9.5 to 11.5. Strong bread flour 12 to 14-ish, and extra strong, that's the Manitoba type flours, 14 to 16. You'll often see these referred to as soft and hard flours, soft with low protein, hard with high protein. It's possible to make a soft flour act a bit like a hard flour, but you do not want to make a hard flour act like a soft flour. Nobody wants chewy sponges. And as you probably guessed, flour does not last forever. As soon as that germ is cracked open, the fatty acids start deteriorating. I suppose you could say it starts to go rancid, but it's a bit harsh that, isn't it? So as you'd expect, the wholemeal flours tend to go off a bit faster because they contain the oils from the germ. So as a very rough guide, plain flour can last up to about a year, same as bread flour. Self-raising flours only last 4 to 6 months because the baking powder goes off. And the wholemeal flours, 3 to 6 months if you're lucky. You can double those times by storing the flour in the freezer. I like to keep mine in the packet it came in. Let's face it, the manufacturer put it in paper bags for a reason. It lets the flour breathe. Just make sure the top is tightly rolled up. If the bag is ruined, I put it in an airtight container. So that's it, guys. Flour in a nutshell. What it is, how it's made, and how to choose the right one for your baking. In the next Bread Basics episode, we'll be looking at yeast. Fresh, instant and active dry, and we'll see how each one behaves with your dough. Hope you've enjoyed this one, guys. Take care.